It was the small things that started to shift, almost imperceptibly, at first. The way she would sometimes look at me, like I wasn't really there. Or how she began to spend her evenings at the dining table, her back to me, bent over her phone, tapping away for hours without a word. The space between us started to grow, like a slow, creeping fog that you don't notice until it's too late. And by the time I realized it was suffocating me, it was almost too hard to breathe. But what I remember most vividly is that night. The night I saw something that made me feel like I didn't even know her. I had just come home from a long day. The house was quiet, the air in the living room cool. The flickering light from the TV cast a soft glow across the room, but Emily wasn't there, not in her usual spot. I dropped my keys on the counter, shrugged off my jacket, and wandered through the house looking for her. That's when I found her, sitting on the couch, her knees pulled up to her chest. She didn't notice me at first. Her focus was fixed entirely on something in her hands. I took a step closer, trying to figure out what it was. She was holding a magazine, one I hadn't seen before, one she never mentioned. I don't know what it was about that moment, but something about the way she was holding the magazine struck me as strange. She wasn't turning the pages like she usually would. No, this time, her fingers were just resting on the cover, staring at it with such intensity that it made my skin crawl. I cleared my throat, and she jumped, almost dropping the magazine. Her eyes met mine, wide and unblinking. For a moment, she looked like a deer caught in headlights. "Oh, hey," she said, forcing a smile, but it was weak, too thin to hide the tension that had suddenly filled the room. "Didn't hear you come in. What's that?" I asked, nodding toward the magazine in her hands. The question hung in the air, unspoken but obvious. She hesitated for a beat, then glanced down at it. "Just a magazine," she said, like it was nothing, but the unease in her voice didn't match the casualness of her words. I raised an eyebrow. "What kind of magazine?" "It's nothing important," she replied, but there was something in her voice, something I couldn't quite place. "Just something I found." I took a step forward, my curiosity now fully piqued. "Can I see it?" For a split second, her eyes flickered with something unreadable, fear, guilt. But then, just as quickly, she handed it to me, the corners of the magazine crinkling under her touch. I didn't think much of it at first. It was a glossy, thick magazine, with a bright cover that almost blinded me in the low light. The title read, "Unseen Faces," a phrase that sent an unfamiliar chill down my spine. I flipped it open without hesitation, but when I saw the first page, my stomach dropped. There, staring back at me, was a photo of myself. Or at least, it looked like me. I froze, the image on the page suddenly filling my vision. It was a picture I didn't recognize, taken somewhere I had never been, at a time I couldn't place. But it was undeniably my face. My eyes. My expression. Only it wasn't me. Not completely. The man in the photo looked older, more tired. His hair was messy in a way I never wore mine. His eyes haunted in a way I didn't recognize. He was standing on the edge of what looked like a derelict building, the city skyline behind him. His lips were twisted into a half-smile, almost smug, like he knew something I didn't. I couldn't breathe. The air in the room felt thick, suffocating. I turned the page, hoping the next photo would be some sort of mistake, but it wasn't. The next page showed the same man, in a different setting, on a street corner, a crowd behind him, but still, it was him. It was me, only, not me. I felt a tremor in my hand as I turned the page again, my heartbeat quickening. My fingers traced the words under the photo, the caption, "The ghosts of the past, the men we could have been." I looked at Emily, my voice barely a whisper. Where did this come from? She didn't answer. Instead, her eyes flicked nervously to the floor, then back to the magazine. Her lips parted, but nothing came out. "This isn't funny, Emily. Why is there a picture of me in here? Why does this feel so wrong?" My voice shook, the panic starting to rise in my chest. She shifted uncomfortably on the couch. Her gaze never met mine. I didn't want you to see that," she said, barely above a whisper. "What do you mean you didn't want me to see it? Why would you hide something like this?" The words were coming out of my mouth before I could stop them. She stood up quickly, her movements jerky and frantic. "You don't understand," she said, her voice cracking. "You don't know him. He's someone from my past. Someone I tried to forget. But now he's back, and he's come for you." I stared at her, utterly confused. My mind raced, trying to process the meaning of her words, but they didn't make sense. What are you talking about? Who is this guy? But before she could answer, she turned and bolted out of the room, leaving me there, holding the magazine with my face on the cover, my mind reeling. I didn't know what I was looking at, but I knew one thing for sure. Whatever this was, whatever dark secret she was keeping, it was about to destroy everything I thought I knew. And I had no idea how far I was willing to go to uncover the truth. The silence that followed Emily's hurried exit was almost suffocating. I was still holding the magazine, my mind a whirlwind of confusion and suspicion. Who was the man in that photo? Why was he wearing my face, but with eyes that were entirely unfamiliar to me? The more I thought about it, the more my head ached. The questions kept piling up, but none of them seemed to have any answers. It was like I had stumbled into a nightmare, one where I was awake but couldn't wake up. I stood there for a long moment, staring at the magazine in my hands, but it felt like I wasn't really holding it at all. The weight of it seemed to shift with every thought I had. Finally, I dropped it on the coffee table, my hands shaking as I walked away. I needed to find Emily. I needed answers, even if I wasn't sure I was ready for what I might hear. I searched the house for her, calling her name into the empty rooms. There was no answer. The house was as silent as the grave. My heart was pounding in my chest, the unease growing into a full-on panic. I knew something was wrong. I could feel it in the air, in the way she had looked at me. It was like she was hiding something from me, something so huge that she couldn't bear to speak it. I finally found her in the bedroom, sitting on the edge of the bed, her head buried in her hands. She was trembling, the faint sound of her sobs barely audible over the rush of blood in my ears. I took a step forward, unsure of how to approach her, but I knew I couldn't let her shut me out any longer. "Emily," I said softly, "what's going on? What does all of this mean?" She looked up at me, her eyes bloodshot, as if she hadn't slept in days. For a moment, she just stared at me, her face a mixture of fear and regret. Then, slowly, she spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. "I never wanted you to find out. I never wanted you to see him, see what he did to us." I felt the floor beneath me shift. "Who are you talking about? What are you saying?" Her breath hitched as she wiped her eyes, trying to compose herself. "His name is Lucas. He's someone I thought I could forget, someone I left behind when I met you. But now he's back, and he's trying to destroy everything." I took a step back, my mind reeling. Lucas. The name felt like a punch to the gut. Who was this man? What kind of hold did he have over her that she would hide this from me, hide him from me? What does he want, Emily? What's he done? She stood up then, pacing around the room, her hands wringing together as she spoke. "He's been sending me messages for months, little notes, little things, just enough to get under my skin. At first, I thought it was just him trying to get me back, trying to get into my head. But it wasn't just that. It was more. I didn't know how to stop him. And then the photos started showing up." Her voice cracked as she stopped pacing and looked at me, her eyes wide with fear. "He's watching us, Jack. He's always been watching us." The room felt like it was closing in on me. I could barely process what she was saying. Lucas. Watching. Photos. It didn't make sense. How do you know he's the one behind the magazine? How do you know it's him? She looked down at her hands, her face pale. "Because he's been doing this to me for years. He's always been one step ahead, always knowing exactly what I'm doing, where I'm going. I don't know how, but he's been in my life for so long, and I never knew how to stop him. I thought I could keep him in the past, but he found us, Jack. He found us again." I felt a wave of nausea roll over me. Was this real? Was this all just some twisted game? Or was something much darker going on? Something that Emily had been hiding from me all this time? My mind raced, trying to put the pieces together, but every thought felt like it was slipping through my fingers. "Why didn't you tell me sooner, Emily?" I asked, my voice tight with frustration and confusion. "Why keep it a secret? If you knew something was wrong, why didn't you tell me?" She sank back onto the bed, her shoulders shaking with the weight of her words. "I was trying to protect you. I thought I could handle it on my own, that I could keep it from affecting us. I didn't want you to get involved. I didn't want you to get hurt." Her words stung, cutting deep. She had been keeping this secret from me, this dangerous, unsettling secret, all for the sake of protecting me? It didn't make sense. I had a right to know. I had a right to understand what was happening. I took a deep breath, trying to steady my racing thoughts. "So what now, Emily? What do we do? How do we stop him?" Her eyes filled with tears again, and she looked up at me with a mixture of fear and helplessness. I don't know, Jack. I don't know how to stop him, but I'm scared. I'm scared that he's already too close. I felt a chill run down my spine. I didn't know who Lucas was or what he wanted, but one thing was clear. He wasn't just a ghost from Emily's past. He was here, in the present, and he was after something. And it seemed like Emily wasn't the only one in danger. The weight of the unknown hung over me as I stood there, staring at her. I had no idea what was coming next, but I knew one thing. I wasn't going to let him tear apart everything I cared about. Not without a fight. The room seemed to close in around me as Emily's words sunk in. She looked smaller somehow, like the weight of whatever she was holding back had begun to crush her. She sat there, her eyes glued to the floor, as if the words that had just spilled out of her had left her hollow, empty. I was frozen, standing at the edge of the bed, trying to process the magnitude of what she had just said. Lucas, a man from her past, a man who had come back to destroy everything. The photo, the magazine, the strange, unexplainable fear that had gripped her, it all started to make sense. Or at least it should have. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized I didn't know a damn thing about this man. This Lucas. How long has this been going on? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. I was afraid that if I spoke too loudly, I would shatter the fragile, brittle moment we were in. The world outside the room seemed so distant, almost like it didn't matter anymore. Everything I thought I knew was slipping through my fingers. It wasn't just about the photo. It wasn't just about Lucas. It was about us. About the trust one thought we had. The security I thought we shared. Was it all built on lies? Emily finally looked up at me, her face streaked with tears. I didn't want you to get caught up in this, Jack. You weren't supposed to know. I thought I could deal with it on my own. The way she said it made me feel like a fool for not noticing the cracks before. The small moments when she would flinch at the sound of a text message coming through, the way her phone was always turned face down, the constant tension in the air. The signs had been there all along, but I never put them together. I never thought to ask the questions. But why now, Emily? Why did he show up again? I asked, my mind racing as I tried to piece it all together. If he's been in your life for so long, why did it get worse now? Emily bit her lip, struggling to find the words. I don't know. It's like he just appeared again. But this time, it's different. He's more dangerous. I can feel it. The things he says, the way he watches us, he's not the same person he was before. Her voice faltered, and she looked away from me, almost ashamed. I thought I had it under control. I thought I could leave him behind, but he wouldn't let me. He's always there, lurking in the background, waiting for the right moment. My heart pounded in my chest. This wasn't just some long-lost ex who was trying to get her back. This wasn't some guy with a crush. This was a man who had been stalking her, manipulating her, controlling her for years. And I had no idea. How does he know all this? How does he know about us? I asked, the fear creeping into my voice. I don't know, she whispered, her hands shaking as she clutched the edge of the bed. I don't know how he's been doing it, but it's like he's always a step ahead. Like he knows where I am before I even leave the house. I don't think he's ever really gone, Jack. He's just been waiting for the right moment to make his move. Her words sent a chill down my spine. The thought of someone watching us, tracking her every move, made my skin crawl. But what terrified me more was the realization that she didn't seem to know how to stop him. She didn't seem to know what he was capable of. And that terrified me even more than the idea of him in our lives. The magazine, the photo, the way she reacted when she saw it. It was all connected. But what was he planning? What did he want from us? Was it just revenge, or was there something more sinister at play? I looked at Emily, my eyes searching hers for any sign that she knew what to do next. But there was nothing. She was lost, just as much as I was. She had been living in the shadow of this man for so long that I could see the toll it had taken on her. Her once vibrant spirit had faded, replaced by fear and uncertainty. And it hit me then. This wasn't just about Lucas. It was about the control he had over her, the power he had over her life. He had already taken so much from her, and now, it seemed like he was coming for everything else. He was coming for us. I took a deep breath and tried to steady myself. I couldn't let her face this alone. No matter how lost or confused I felt, I had to be strong for her. I had to protect her, even if I didn't fully understand what was happening. Emily, I said, my voice firm now, we're going to figure this out. We're going to stop him. I don't care who he is or how long he's been in your life. He's not going to get away with this." But even as I said the words, I felt a deep, unsettling doubt settle in my chest. I had no idea what I was up against. I didn't know what kind of man Lucas was, or how far he was willing to go to get what he wanted. But I knew one thing for sure. I wasn't going to let him destroy everything we had. Not without a fight. And yet, as I said those words, I couldn't shake the feeling that this fight was going to be much bigger than I ever expected. The days that followed Emily's confession were a blur of fear and uncertainty. I barely slept. Every time I closed my eyes, I could see that picture in the magazine, the one with my face on it, but it wasn't me. It was the face of a stranger, someone I didn't recognize, but someone who knew everything about me. I kept wondering how this had happened, how a man from her past could come back like this, and how he could be watching us. No, haunting us. Emily was still on edge, constantly looking over her shoulder, her mind clearly occupied with thoughts of Lucas, and it was starting to break her down. She would flinch at the sound of a car door closing outside, jump whenever the phone rang, and that distant, almost haunted look in her eyes never seemed to fade. It was as though the person I once knew was slipping further away, and I was powerless to pull her back. One evening, after another long day of staring at the same four walls, I decided to dig deeper into this. I couldn't just sit idly by anymore, not knowing what was really happening, what Lucas was doing, or what he wanted. It was clear he wasn't just an ex. He was something far darker, more dangerous than I could have ever imagined. I needed answers, and I needed them fast. I started by searching through Emily's old things, something I had never done before. It felt wrong, invasive, but I was desperate. She had mentioned Lucas' name in passing, but she never went into details about who he was, what he had done, or how he had become a shadow in her life. All I knew was that she had been in love with him once, a long time ago, and that he had left a mark on her that was still there, even if she didn't want to admit it. I found an old shoebox under the bed, tucked away in the back of the closet. The cardboard was worn, frayed at the edges, and it looked like it hadn't been opened in years. My heart pounded in my chest as I lifted the lid, half expecting to find something I couldn't handle. Inside, there were photos, old, yellowed photos, and letters tied together with a ribbon. I started sifting through them, my fingers trembling as I flipped through the pictures. Most were of Emily in her younger years, carefree, smiling in places I didn't recognize. And then, there was a photo of her and Lucas. They were standing together, their arms around each other, their faces filled with laughter. He was smiling at her in a way that I couldn't describe, like he owned her. It was that same, too intense gaze that sent a chill down my spine. And something about that photo bothered me. It wasn't just the way they were together, it was the way she looked at him. She had loved him, I could see that now, and the connection between them was undeniable. But it wasn't just the photos. As I continued to dig through the box, I found more letters, dozens of them, all written by Lucas. Some were from when they were together, but others were after they had broken up. Some were filled with rage, others with desperation. As I read through the words, I began to piece together a picture of who Lucas really was. He wasn't just some old flame. He was a man obsessed, a man who had never truly let go. Even after Emily had moved on, after she had married me, he had kept sending her letters, slowly building a wall of guilt, of pressure, that she couldn't escape. My stomach churned as I read the final letter. It was dated only a few months ago, and it was different from the others. It wasn't filled with anger or longing. It was filled with something far more dangerous, a promise. "You can't escape what's coming, Emily," the letter said. "I've always been here, and I always will be. You can't outrun me. Not now, not ever." The weight of those words hit me like a punch to the gut. I stood there, staring at the letter, my mind racing. He had been preparing for this. He had been waiting for the right moment to strike, to make sure that Emily could never truly escape him. And it wasn't just about her anymore. He was coming for me too. He was going to tear everything apart, and I didn't know how to stop it. I took the letters and photos back to the living room, where Emily was sitting in silence, her face drawn and tired. She looked up when I entered, her eyes immediately falling on the pile of old memories I had gathered. "You shouldn't have gone through those," she said, her voice quiet, almost pleading. "I didn't want you to see them. I didn't want you to know." But it was too late. The truth was staring me in the face, and I couldn't ignore it anymore. "Emily, he's not just a man from your past. I said, my voice tight with emotion. He's been controlling you, manipulating you for years. He's been waiting for you to slip up, for you to let your guard down. And now he's here. He's back. And he's not going to stop until he gets what he wants. She didn't say anything. She just sat there, her eyes downcast, as if she couldn't bear to face the reality of it all. I didn't know if she was ashamed, scared, or just too exhausted to fight anymore. But I couldn't just let her sit there in silence. I had to push her, had to make her understand that we couldn't just let Lucas have control of our lives anymore. We have to fight back, Emily. We have to take control. If we don't, we'll lose everything. For a long moment, she didn't answer. Then, slowly, she looked up at me, her face filled with resignation. I don't know how to fight him, Jack, she whispered. I don't know if we can. Her words hit me harder than I expected. What if we couldn't fight him? What if this man, this ghost from her past, had already won? And more terrifying still, what if he had only just begun? I could feel the weight of the situation bearing down on me, the realization that we were now playing a dangerous game against an enemy I didn't understand. But I wasn't about to let Lucas win, not without a fight. And I would do whatever it took to protect Emily and our future, even if it meant facing a part of her past that she never wanted to see again. The night dragged on like it was never going to end. I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, all I saw was Lucas, his dark, unblinking eyes staring back at me from those damn photos. I had to keep reminding myself that he wasn't just some figment of my imagination. He was real. He was out there. And he had made it clear that he wasn't going anywhere. The more I thought about it, the more I realized how little I knew about him. The man who had spent years lurking in Emily's life, controlling her, manipulating her, it was all too much. I kept replaying her words in my head. He's always been here, Jack. He's never really gone. I didn't know what that meant. I didn't know how he had been so deeply embedded in our lives without my noticing. But I was beginning to understand that this was bigger than I could have ever imagined. The very next morning, I decided to take matters into my own hands. I was going to find out everything I could about Lucas. I needed to know his every move, his every connection, and most importantly, his weaknesses. But first, I needed to confront Emily again. She was sitting at the kitchen table, her coffee cup untouched, her fingers absent-mindedly tracing the rim. Her eyes were dull, lost in thought. The woman I had married, the woman who once had so much life in her, was slipping away, and I couldn't just stand by and watch it happen. I had to be strong, for both of us. Emily, I said, my voice steady but firm, we can't keep running from this. I don't care how much you want to protect me, or how much you think you can handle it on your own. You don't have to do this alone anymore. We need to face him. Together. Her head snapped up, and for the first time in days, I saw a flicker of something in her eyes. Fear, yes, but also determination. She opened her mouth to say something, but then hesitated, her fingers clenching around the coffee cup like she was holding on to some semblance of control. Jack, she whispered, her voice barely audible. I don't know if you understand. He's not just a man. He's a part of me, a part of my past that I've never been able to escape. And I don't know if I ever will. I sat down across from her, my hands flat against the table, trying to keep my emotions in check. I couldn't let her see how much I was struggling, how deeply this was affecting me. But it wasn't just about her anymore. It was about us, about our life together. I understand more than you think, I said quietly, my voice low and serious. And I'm not going to let him tear us apart. We need to find out who he really is, what he really wants, and how far he's willing to go to get it. We can't keep living in fear. She looked at me, her eyes searching mine, like she was trying to decide if she could trust me enough to let me in, to let me fight this battle with her. After a long silence, she finally nodded, her shoulders sagging in defeat. Okay, she whispered. I'll help you, but you need to be prepared. This is going to get worse before it gets better. I nodded, trying to push down the wave of fear that was threatening to overwhelm me. I wasn't sure what we were about to uncover, but I knew that whatever it was, we had to be ready. Together. I spent the next few days digging into Lucas' past, searching for any shred of information I could find. Emily had given me a few clues, but they weren't enough. She had told me that Lucas had always been elusive, always one step ahead, and that his life had been shrouded in mystery. She didn't know where he had gone after they had parted ways. and that uncertainty had only deepened the fear she felt when he resurfaced. But I wasn't about to let him stay hidden in the shadows any longer. Every lead I followed seemed to hit a dead end. No one had heard from him in years, and there was no record of his movements since Emily had last seen him. It was as if he had vanished completely, only to reappear like a ghost from the past. But then, something caught my eye. A name, a small detail buried in the depths of an old article I found. It wasn't much, but it was enough to make me feel like I was getting closer. The name was connected to a company, a small, almost inconspicuous tech firm that specialized in data encryption and surveillance systems. It was a stretch, but it was the only lead I had. I had to follow it. That afternoon, I drove to the address listed on the company's website. It was located on the outskirts of the city, in a nondescript building surrounded by industrial warehouses. I parked a few blocks away, my heart racing as I walked toward the building. This was it. This was where I might finally find out the truth about Lucas. I stood outside for a long moment, trying to calm my nerves, but the feeling of dread settled in my chest like a heavy weight. I wasn't just walking into a random building. I was walking into the heart of the unknown, and I had no idea what I would find on the other side. As I pushed open the door, I felt a chill run down my spine. The air inside was cold, sterile, almost as if it were too quiet, like the calm before the storm. The receptionist, a young woman with dark eyes, didn't even look up when I walked in. I approached the desk, my steps slow and deliberate. "I'm looking for someone," I said, my voice steady but unsure. "A man named Lucas. He used to work here." The receptionist glanced at me, her expression blank. "I'm sorry, but we don't have anyone by that name working here," she said quickly, not giving me a second glance. I felt my stomach twist in disbelief. Could it be? Had I followed the wrong lead? Was it all just a waste of time? I pressed further. "Are you sure? I was told he might have connections here." She looked up at me then, and for a split second, I saw something in her eyes, something that made my skin crawl. It was as if she was hiding something important. But she quickly turned away, picking up the phone and dialing something without another word. My gut instinct told me that I wasn't supposed to be here. I turned to leave, but as I reached the door, I heard a voice behind me. "You're not supposed to be here," the receptionist said sharply, her voice cold as ice. "Leave now." I didn't need to be told twice. My heart was pounding, my hands clammy as I rushed out of the building, back into the cold, uncertain world outside. But as I walked away, I realized one thing. I was closer than I had ever been to finding Lucas. And now, I was more determined than ever to uncover the truth. I wasn't going to let him hide in the shadows any longer. Not while Emily's life, and our future, hung in the balance. I couldn't shake the unease that gripped me after my visit to the tech firm. The cold, dismissive receptionist, the strange look in her eyes, it all felt wrong. But it was the feeling that had been creeping in for days that unsettled me the most. It was as though we were being watched. I had the constant sense that someone, somewhere, was waiting for us to make the next move, like we were all just pieces in some twisted game that I didn't understand. I couldn't stop thinking about the words Emily had said. "He's always been here. He's never really gone." It was as if Lucas had been in the background all along, orchestrating things from the shadows, pulling strings, waiting for the right time to strike. I knew I had to go back and confront Emily again. We needed to talk, to figure out how to stop this, or it was going to destroy everything. When I got home, I found Emily sitting on the couch, staring blankly at the television. The sound was muted, and the light from the screen flickered across her face, but she wasn't watching. Her mind was somewhere else, lost in the fog of her thoughts, just as it had been for days. She looked up when I entered, her eyes wary, waiting for the storm I knew was coming. "We need to talk," I said, my voice calm but firm. She sighed, rubbing her temples, as if bracing herself. "I know. I can see it in your eyes. You're getting frustrated." I sat down next to her, trying to steady my nerves. "It's not just frustration, Emily. It's fear. I feel like we're being hunted, like we're waiting for something terrible to happen, and I don't know what to do about it." She looked at me, her expression softening for just a moment, but it quickly hardened again, as though she couldn't let herself fully break down. "I know how you feel. I've been feeling it for so long now. I wish I could make it go away, but I don't think we can outrun him anymore. Lucas has been part of my life for too long. The things he's done to me, they're not something I can just shake off." I felt the weight of her words and the helplessness that came with them. Lucas wasn't just an obstacle we had to get past. He was a force that had embedded itself so deeply into her life that it was like he was part of her very being. She had tried to leave him behind, but he had never let go. The thought made my blood run cold. What kind of man would do that? What kind of power did he have over her? I reached for her hand, trying to ground myself in the reality of the moment. We need a plan. I'm not going to just sit here while this man tries to destroy us. We need to know everything about him. Where he's been, who he's talked to, what he's capable of. She nodded slowly, her lips pressed together in a thin line. I've been thinking the same thing. There's no way we're going to stop him if we don't know what we're dealing with. I could see the spark of determination in her eyes, and it gave me hope. She was finally ready to fight back. We both were. But that spark was quickly extinguished when she spoke again. There's something else you need to know, Jack, Emily said, her voice quiet but heavy with meaning. Something I should have told you before, but I didn't know how. I leaned forward, my heart pounding in my chest. What is it? What are you not telling me? She hesitated, biting her lip as though she were trying to summon the strength to say the words. Finally, she let out a shaky breath. When we first met, I thought I was leaving him behind. But I didn't. He wasn't just some ex-boyfriend I had gotten rid of. He was someone I couldn't escape. And he had something on me. Something that I could never tell anyone. I frowned, trying to understand. What do you mean, he had something on you? Emily looked down at her hands, her fingers fidgeting nervously with the hem of her shirt. When we were together, he recorded everything. Every fight, every argument, every intimate moment. He kept it all, videos, photos, recordings. He told me that if I ever left him, he would expose everything. He would ruin my life. The words hit me like a punch to the gut. I had always known there was something dark about Lucas, but I never imagined it was something like this. You mean he blackmailed you? With everything you had? Emily nodded, her face pale. Yes, and when I left him, he made sure I knew that he still had it all. He told me that no matter how far I ran, he would always be able to find me. And that's when I realized that I could never truly escape him. No matter what I did, he would always be watching. I sat back, my mind spinning with the revelation. Emily had been trapped, not just by Lucas' obsession with her, but by the fear he had instilled in her. The power he had over her was more than just emotional. It was physical. He had the ability to destroy her life with a single phone call, a single message. And now that power was turning toward me. I could feel the weight of his presence bearing down on us, like a shadow we couldn't outrun. Emily, I said, my voice low, we need to find those recordings. We need to know what he has on you, and we need to take it away from him. If he's using this to control you, we can't let him keep it. Her eyes were wide with fear, but I could see the flicker of determination behind them. She wasn't ready to give up yet. I don't know where they are, Jack. He hid them somewhere I can't reach. He told me that if I ever tried to find them, I would regret it. Then we'll find another way, I said, my voice resolute. We can't let him control us anymore. We're going to make sure he can't hurt you, or us, again. But even as I said the words, I knew how dangerous this was. Lucas wasn't just a man who could ruin our lives. He was someone who had been watching us from the shadows, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. And now, it seemed like that moment was finally here. We weren't just fighting for our relationship anymore. We were fighting for our very survival. And the scariest part? I wasn't sure we were going to make it out alive. The next few days were a blur of frantic action. Emily and I began to piece together the threads of our fight against Lucas. We knew we were up against a man who wasn't just trying to win her back. He was using fear, manipulation, and something much more sinister to control her life. It wasn't just about revenge, it was about power. But as we planned our next move, I couldn't shake the feeling that Lucas was already several steps ahead of us, watching from the shadows, waiting for us to make a mistake. Every decision felt like a gamble, and the stakes kept getting higher. The weight of the situation was bearing down on me, and no matter how many times I told myself I was doing the right thing, the fear gnawed at the edges of my mind. One evening, after hours of discussing the next step, Emily told me something that changed everything. We were sitting on the couch, the soft glow of the lamp casting shadows across the room. She had been silent for a while, lost in thought. When she turned to me, her eyes filled with hesitation. Jack, there's something else, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. I looked at her, already bracing myself for the worst. Lucas, he's not just hiding the recordings somewhere. He's using them to keep track of us. I don't think it's just about the past anymore. I think he's watching us in real time. I felt my heart stop. What do you mean? I asked, a lump forming in my throat. He has eyes on us, she said, her voice shaking with the weight of her words. He's been spying on us, Jack. He has cameras set up, hidden in our home, in places we never would have thought to check. I think he's been watching us for months, maybe even longer. The room seemed to spin, the air suddenly thick with the realization of what that meant. I had never suspected that something like this could happen to us. It felt like a bad dream, a nightmare that I couldn't wake up from. But the look in Emily's eyes told me that this wasn't some fantasy. It was real. Lucas had been in our lives, in our most private moments, for so long, and we had no idea. The thought of him having eyes on us, of him knowing our every move, made my skin crawl. I grabbed her hand, trying to steady myself. How did you find out? How do you know? She took a deep breath, clearly struggling to hold herself together. I found something the other day. When I was looking through some of my old things, I found a notebook. It had notes in it, things Lucas had written, things I never wanted to remember. And in one of the entries, he mentioned that he had been watching us, listening to us. He knows everything, Jack. Everything. I stared at her, my mind racing. We need to find these cameras, Emily. We need to know where he's watching us from. But even as I said the words, a new wave of panic gripped me. I couldn't even begin to imagine where these hidden cameras could be, or what else Lucas had planned. Every corner of our house, every inch of privacy we once had, was now suspect. How had he managed to get so close without us even noticing? The thought that we had been living in his surveillance was suffocating, and I couldn't shake the feeling that Lucas was always one step ahead. Emily nodded, her expression grim. I know, but it's not just about finding the cameras. We have to find out what he's planning. We have to know how far he's willing to go. I stood up, the adrenaline kicking in. Let's do it. We'll start tonight. We spent the next few hours going through the house, checking every room, every nook and cranny. We started in the places where we thought the cameras might be, behind the mirrors, inside the vents, under the furniture, but we found nothing. Every room felt more and more like a trap, a place where we were constantly being watched, and the fear of what we might find kept growing with each passing second. As we moved into the study, I felt a cold chill settle in the air. I pulled open the drawer in my desk, half expecting to find nothing. But instead, I found a small black box, hidden behind a stack of papers. My heart skipped a beat as I reached for it, my fingers trembling with anticipation. Emily stood behind me, her breath shallow, her eyes wide with fear. I opened the box, and inside, I found a small, sleek device, an audio recorder, connected to a tiny camera. My blood ran cold as I realized what it was. It wasn't just a hidden camera. It was a live feed device. Lucas had been watching us, listening to us, in real time. He had been recording our every conversation, every movement, every moment we thought we were alone. The thought made my stomach turn. God, I muttered, as the weight of what we had just discovered hit me. He's been here, in this house, the whole time. Emily sank into the chair behind me, her face pale. He knows everything, Jack. He's been tracking us. Every move we've made, every word we've said. I took a deep breath, trying to steady my racing heart. We need to get rid of this. We need to make sure he can't use it against us. As I reached for the device, a sudden thought hit me. What if Lucas had already taken steps to protect himself? What if there were more devices hidden around the house, more places where we couldn't reach? The idea that there were more eyes watching us, more pieces of his surveillance network scattered throughout our home, was enough to make me feel like we were trapped in a game we couldn't win. But there was no time to waste. We had to act. I took the device and carefully placed it in the trash, my mind already racing to the next step. We couldn't just keep searching for these cameras. We had to find Lucas. We had to take control of this situation, or else we would be stuck in this nightmare forever. Emily and I sat in silence for a long time, the weight of what we had uncovered settling heavily between us. The room felt colder now, more oppressive, as though the walls themselves were closing in on us. I could feel the fear rising in my chest again, but this time, I didn't let it take hold. We had come too far. We couldn't stop now. We'll fight this, Emily, I said, my voice low but determined. We'll find him, and we'll put an end to this. He's not going to control us anymore. But even as I said it, I knew that Lucas wasn't done with us. Not by a long shot. He was still out there, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. And I didn't know how much longer we had before he did. The days that followed were filled with a strange mixture of tension and determination. Emily and I had crossed a line that couldn't be uncrossed. We knew what we were up against now, and we knew that there was no turning back. Lucas had been in control for far too long, but not anymore. As terrifying as the situation was, we were no longer helpless. We had each other, and we had the will to fight. After we discovered the hidden cameras, we moved quickly. Emily contacted a lawyer, someone she trusted, who helped us secure the legal means to protect ourselves. We filed a restraining order against Lucas, making sure that he had no legal grounds to approach us. But that was just the beginning. We needed to find him, confront him, and make sure he could never threaten us again. A week later, we received a tip, a name, a place, a lead that sent us straight into the heart of the web Lucas had woven around us. The tech firm I had visited earlier turned out to be more than just a place where he worked. It was a front, a cover for his darker dealings. We didn't know the full extent of what he had been doing, but I was sure it was something illegal. Emily and I worked together, piecing together the last bits of the puzzle, until we had enough evidence to finally confront him. That night, we drove to the warehouse where he had been hiding, a place we had found through the trail of breadcrumbs he had left behind. It was dark and deserted, the kind of place where you'd expect to find someone hiding from the world. But tonight, we weren't the ones hiding. We parked a few blocks away, the tension between us palpable. Emily's hand was shaking in mine, but there was a strength in her eyes now that I hadn't seen before. We weren't running from Lucas anymore. We were going to face him head on and take back control of our lives. We approached the warehouse cautiously, my heart pounding in my chest. Every step we took felt like a step into the unknown, but we were ready. As we reached the entrance, the door creaked open, and there, standing in front of us, was Lucas. He looked exactly the way I remembered from the photos. Older, colder, but still that same twisted smile that made my blood run cold. "You finally found me," Lucas said, his voice smooth and taunting. "Took you long enough. But it doesn't matter. You're too late." "No," I said, my voice firm, steady. "It's over, Lucas. You don't have control anymore." He smirked, but I saw the flicker of uncertainty in his eyes. For the first time, he looked like he wasn't sure of himself. The power he had held over Emily, over us, was slipping away. And it wasn't just because of me. It was because Emily was standing beside me, no longer the scared woman she had been before. She was strong, resolute, and ready to take back her life. "I'm not afraid of you anymore," Emily said, her voice calm but filled with conviction. "You don't own me. You never did." Lucas stepped back, his eyes narrowing. "You think you've won?" he sneered. "You think you can stop me?" "We already have," I said, taking a step forward. "We've already taken back our lives. You're done." In that moment, it felt like the world shifted. The weight of the past months, the fear, the uncertainty, all seemed to lift. The control Lucas had once held over us was shattered, and I knew, with a certainty I had never felt before, that we had won. He wasn't going to hurt us anymore. We walked away from that warehouse together, our heads held high, the light of a new beginning on the horizon. The threat of Lucas was behind us now, but the bond we had formed, the trust and strength we had found in each other, was something no one could take away. We had faced the darkness, and we had emerged victorious. The future was uncertain, but for the first time in a long time, we were ready to face it. Together.